When I was a junior in college, I decided to go on an alternative spring break trip. And the program took us to El Salvador. The bulk of the time we spent in the country was in rural El Salvador, in this very small community that was really about rebuilding community from the ground up and from relationships. There were so many people who had been exiled in the late decades of the 20th century, and they all returned, many of them returned, hoping for a rebirth of experience and life and sustained community. So they brought us to this particular community hoping that we would see the kind of development that was happening and that we would connect with the residents of that community. So inherently, the trip, the context was around connecting and learning through these relationships. What was really incredible was that one of the lasting feelings that really made me understand what it meant to connect to people who you wouldn't otherwise get to was actually being in San Salvador. So the one day of the week that we didn't spend working or learning, in a group setting, was a tour of the whole city. And so much of the everyday and culture and identity of the people was informed by Archbishop Romero and a lot of the leadership he had in inspiring people, motivating people, and human rights work. So it just happened, I'm sure it was not a coincidence, that we were there on an anniversary either of his birth or death. And so there were huge celebrations in town, in the square, in the cathedrals, and we were in the main cathedral in San Salvador. This was a group of Jewish students brought from San Diego, and in a very Catholic country. And our tour guide was bringing us around the cathedral from room to room, and it was packed. Just, you could hardly move. And he stopped us in the middle of a huge room in this church, and he started speaking not to us, but to everyone who was around us in Spanish. And he was saying, we gathered afterward, he was saying, I have a group of Jewish college students from America who have all come here to experience our everyday lives and learn from us and learn about development. And we were all stunned because we had no warning that he was going to announce our presence or our identity or anything. And I'm sure he thought nothing of it. But we had no idea how people would react, if they would just sort of ignore it and move on. But people were listening, and they applauded after he finished speaking. And we were all so moved because, I think we were sort of all at the same time thinking that wouldn't happen in America. and we were thinking that it was so open-minded of people to not necessarily even know what it meant that we were Jewish people, but certainly that they knew what Americans were, and that they were welcoming, that they appreciated our effort, that we connected in that moment despite not exchanging words one-on-one necessarily, but that they left an impression on us for now it's been over a decade, and hopefully I like to think that our presence alone left an impression on them, that we wanted to learn from them and not just visit.